are back for another fabulous session of reLead. This is actually session 9, and we've got a special guest today because when we decided to enter into the discussion around growing your business and growing your company, growing your team, growing your office through the method of recruiting, as we covered last week, as you know, we went through kind of the what of how to recruit, what you should be doing. And one of the things that we had a lot of questions on was the typical day of a top recruiter, a top leader in the industry. And so I know we have a lot of people on who follow reLead that have been joining us each and every Wednesday at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, who are either running brokerages, running teams, or are aspiring leaders in the real estate industry. And so when we shifted gears to focus on recruiting, because if you think about it, we've gone through everything from creating a mission, putting together a value proposition, looking at different business models, talking about the different ways that you should launch your business or what things you should consider doing in terms of changing your business. We are now at the point where we're ready to start digging into, all right, how do we grow this thing, right? We put a training program together. You put an accountability program together. Let's start growing this thing. And so we've been talking a lot about what we need to do to grow a business. And specifically, we are now on to the recruiting session. So we broke up recruiting into 3 parts. All right. The first part was really the what, the what to do. And now we're going to dig into the how behind it and what a top producer's day should look like. So I brought out one of the best in the business, in my opinion, also one of our coaches, Matt Sutter, someone who I've learned a lot from when it comes to building a big business through recruiting. Again, whether you're a broker owner, whether you're a lead agent, whether you're a team leader, it doesn't matter. The concepts are very similar. So we're going to jump in today what a typical top producing lead agent, top producing team leader's schedule and day should look like. And I'm so excited to have you on, Matt Sutter, for that. So everybody say hi, Matt, digitally, because I know we've probably got hundreds on, maybe even over 1,000. We had, we crashed Zoom a few weeks ago, so we had to move it to a Friday a couple weeks back. So hopefully we don't crash the internet today. Okay, before we get into today's material, as we do every single week, we have a winner. We randomly select someone that is utilizing or sharing or showing support for GloverU and for reLead. So anytime you use the hashtag GloverU or hashtag reLead, we scour social media for your posts, and every week we give away some swag. And so if the operations team could show us who this week's winner is. Oh, Sarita, awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Sarita. That is an awesome backpack. I'm telling you, you are going to love that backpack. We're sending that out to you. Thank you, Sarita, for joining us for reLead each and every week. And every week we give away some awesome, Under Armour, Nike, OGO in this case, gear when you use the hashtag GloverU and hashtag reLead. All right, Matt, so before we pull up the schedule here, can you just give us a couple minutes of why you're qualified to talk about this topic for those that don't know who you are?
Yeah, Jeff, it's awesome to be here. Appreciate it, and love the relationship that we've got, obviously, and going back several years. Really the reason that I'm coming to the forefront is just my background, specifically in actually recruiting agents on a day-to-day basis, both within the team environment and also within the office environment. And as you know, Jeff, recruiting is the lifeblood of any business. It doesn't matter what industry we're in. At the end of the day, if you can't recruit great and even brilliant people, the chance of you being relevant in the conversation as a exceptional business person go out the window. So we're excited to have this conversation today, and I love this schedule that you're going to share with the group. So I can't wait to kind of dig into it.
Yep, awesome. So just to bring everyone up to speed, a couple things. Number one, Matt Sutter was actually the regional director when I was building market centers here in Detroit. And so a lot of the things that we did, I reached out to Matt and said, hey, Matt, what do you think about this? Matt was a leader to me during those times. prior to that, while we were building, this is prior to, owning brokerages, I was running real estate offices and building a large real estate team. And so last week we covered some of the what behind that. And one of the things we shared, which we had a lot of requests for, I mean, I'll tell you, of everything we talked about last week, we had more people reach out and say either A, can I get a copy of Jeff's schedule, or B, can you cover that schedule in more detail? So I figured if I was going to have anyone on to help me talk about that schedule, it would be Matt, considering he's lived it, he's taught it, and it's nice to have a different perspective. So I'm going to share my screen here in a second, and I'm going to reference the schedule that we shared last week, so that way, and we'll go back and forth from screen share to video here. But one of the statements I made last week was recruiting solves every problem in a real estate company, period, right? You've seen that. Recruiting solves every problem, whether it's a real estate team, whether it's a brokerage, it doesn't matter. Recruiting solves every problem in a real estate company. So how do you, since we know that that's the answer, how do we make it part of our, not just something that we do, I think a lot of lead agents out there, Matt, and a lot of team leaders or broker owners of companies think of recruiting as kind of like, yeah, it's important, but it's not like the main part of their day. It's kind of like the latter part of their day, or maybe when they get around to it once a week or a couple times a week. And I think what was a shock to a lot of people last week when I shared that schedule, which we're going to pull up in a second, was, okay, wow, this is like mostly what you do. It is the framework of the day. Can you add to that, Matt, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're dead on. As leaders, a lot of times we get into the weeds and we mistake hard work and effort with we mistake that, or we confuse that with actually being productive. And at the end of the day, right, if we're not actively recruiting, then first off, we are stuck with the problems we have, right? A lot of times when we get into the weeds, we bemoan the issues we're having, and the reality is we can recruit ourselves out of that by simply focusing on that. But most of us actually instead try to just work in the granular problem rather than actually go out and solve it through recruiting. And so can you pull this schedule up? Because I really want us to dig into this, because this is powerful.
I sure can.
This is powerful.
Yep. Let me get it up here on the screen for everybody. Yep. So one of the things I think that was that we got some feedback on, Matt. A lot of people had asked, why are you getting to the office so early when so many agents aren't even there yet? I hear from a lot of leaders in the industry, well, I like to get into the office a little later and work a little later because that's when my agents show up. So what comes to mind when you hear that type of dialogue, Matt?
Yeah, well, first off, I love the idea of getting in early, because at the end of the day, right, it's the quietness in which we can get our most effective work done. So when we come in early, we can make sure that we get the must-dos checked off our list, right? And this is very intensive right from the beginning. We're getting the skill activity, we're getting the accountability activity in without all the noise, right? Because once the agents start coming in, then it's chaos. And we start getting pulled into the gotta minutes and the little, hey, can I have 30 seconds here or 30 seconds here? And we can't get the really meaningful focused time that we can before the agents come in.
And by the way, the reason why I always got in, so this, by the way, for those that weren't with us last week, this was my exact schedule when I was managing for a previous franchise, and I was the top recruiter 2-3 years in a row. They promoted me to director of training and recruiting. And when I started our real estate team, by the way, I stuck with a lot of this schedule, except for maybe later in the day, I started going on appointments and taking listings and so forth. But my morning was pretty much routine. And even you ask our agents today, we do a 7:30 a.m. accountability call for our team. Why is that? Well, that's the only time that I'm used to doing accountability calls. So we covered last week, Matt, what that accountability call looks like as a leader of a real estate office and a leader of a team. And we talked about contacts per day, right? Meaning I'm going to reach out to this many real estate agents today. Yep. All right. So I'd have a call with someone in a different part of the country. And I know you've been on a lot of these too, where we said, all right, Mark down in Florida, how many agents are you going to reach out to today? My goal is to contact 15 agents today. Perfect. So 15 contacts. Great. Now, how many appointments are you going to set? My goal is to set 2 appointments. My goal every day, Matt, was to set 2 appointments, period, right? I wanted to get 2 appointments set up. And the reason for that is because I had a 50% no-show rate. Now, next week, we're going to talk about the scripts we used to set 2 appointments a day and the scripts I used to get at least one of them to show up. But the reason why you set 2 a day is because you're going to have a no-show rate, right? Have you seen that?
Yeah, even the best recruiters are going to have a high no-show rate. And so I love what you've done is that and you have to talk about this last week, that you're going to set them basically back to back and have an overlap window so that you're not ending up with this period of time in which you're twiddling your thumbs waiting for someone to arrive. So absolutely, you got to take that into account.
Just sitting there like this. I wonder if they're going to show up. There is none of that because you only leave yourself a little bit of room, which we'll talk about in a second. So contacts, 2 real estate agents per day. Appointments set. My goal was always 2. Appointments held. My goal, by the way, was actually just 1. I want a minimum of 1. I would set up 2, and that'd be great if 2 showed up, but really I just needed a minimum of 1. And then of course, the 4th thing is offers made. How many agents did I make an offer to join our company, to join our team, to join our brokerage, right? So it's contacts to real estate agents, appointments set, appointments held, and offers made. That's a daily accountability call that should take place every single day. After you're done with that, later in the schedule here, you see at 7:45, Matt, prep for calls, return overnight emails, acknowledgments. We actually had a lot of people reach out and say, what do you mean by acknowledgments? And can you talk to us a little bit about that, Matt?
Well, I think acknowledgments is a way to do the follow-up with the appointments that you've done in the past and to recognize them and appreciate them and tie up any loose ends so you can keep the recruiting process. So a lot of times, Jeff, we know that recruiting isn't just a snapshot, a moment in time. Typically, especially with higher caliber agents, it's a process. There's a multi-step process. And so you've got to just make sure that you're continuing that process, and this is a great time to do that to set up the next phase.
Yeah, so it's actually the acknowledgments is really 2 parts. It's that part, and it's also, I want to make sure everyone understands that acknowledgments means you're acknowledging something that doesn't necessarily mean you need to handle it right in that moment. All right, a lot of real estate leaders, real estate team leaders, real estate brokers, real estate owners get into the office and they have all these emails and all these things to dig into. A problem with this deal, a problem with that deal, a problem with this contract. Right here, you notice at 7:45 to 8:30, I'm just acknowledging, hey, Mary, just want to let you know, I got your email about X, Y, and Z. I'll be getting back to you later today. Hey, Bob, just wanted to let you know, I got your email about, A, B, and C. I'm going to get back to you today. What you don't want to do in the morning is get into handling things. The moment you start handling things, this entire schedule is out the window. You probably say that a lot, I'm sure, Matt. Awesome.
No, big time, right? Because otherwise we get into the weeds, right? We start a little project that we think is going to take 3 minutes, and then 30 minutes later, we're finally ready to move on to the next thing. And the next thing we know, it's 10:30, it's 11 o'clock, and we completely screwed up our day by missing out on the opportunity in the morning.
So it's important that you acknowledge things because you don't want people saying, you know what, I'm going to call another company. I'm going to call another broker. I'm going to call another office. It's important that you acknowledge things, but don't handle them in that moment. Just a simple, got your message, I'll work on it today. Got your note, I'll work on it later, right? All right, 8:30 to 8:45, that's a quick huddle with leadership staff only. What does that look like, Matt?
Yeah, well, this is where we get clarity around what are the key priorities. I think one of the struggles that most leaders of offices or most leader of teams make is that they put everything on their shoulder thinking that they have to get it done. And the reality, Jeff, is we know, right, great leaders are able to effectively leverage through their staff to get most of the busy work done. And so in this 15-minute meeting, we're getting clarity around, okay, here are the key priorities, what's everybody owning, and what are the key commitments that need to happen by the end of the day so that we make sure we're making as much progress as possible.
Yep, love that. Awesome. And that's where you'll also delegate things too, right? Because you just finished acknowledging things, because you just finished going through emails. So all those people that you said, hey, Mary, got your message, I'm going to work on this. Hey, Bob, got the message, I'm going to work on this. Now you can bring that to the huddle. Hey, Teresa, I need you to work on A, B, and C for me, for Bob. I need to get back to Bob by the end of the day, right? Those are things you can bring to that. Basically, delegations, right? So then you have a hard stop at 8:45, sign goes on the door. And by the way, I literally had a stop sign. It was a red stop sign. It said stop, I'm prospecting and you should be too. Stop, I'm prospecting and you should be too. So I'm kind of setting the tone. I'm setting an example for that. And for about 10, 15 minutes, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling someone from another part of the country, and we're jumping right into a role play. And what we're role playing, Matt, is the exact script I'm going to use for that 9 to 11 non-stop prospecting, which we're going to get into that script on next week's session. But you always role play what you're getting ready to do. You know, I never understood why agents, you know, they set up a role play at 7:45 and then they end up role playing a listing presentation. No. You want to get yourself sharp and fresh for an expired call or for sale by owner or internet leads or whatever it is at that time. And then
big time. It also gets us.
Yep, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it also gets us in the proper mindset. It's just like a great athlete doesn't just walk out on the court to start the game without doing warm up. This is the physical activity that gets our mind ready for the actual game time, which is the recruiting calls.
Yep, love that. And then from 9 to 11:30, nonstop prospecting. Now there is a little break in there from 10 to 10:30. We always did a role play with the team. And oh, by the way, with our sales team today, guess what we do from 10 to 10:30? We have a meeting. It's a skill-based meeting. But I wanted to point out nonstop prospecting. All right. So when you hear nonstop prospecting, Matt, what comes to mind? What do you think of when you hear that?
Nonstop prospecting means that it's continual prospecting. We're not taking interruptions. We're not checking our phone. We're not answering questions.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times where agents and leaders of offices really make the mistake is they make a couple calls and then they get distracted by got a minute. And the challenge with that, Jeff, as you know, is from a mindset standpoint, when you get out of that pace, it's very difficult to then transition back into it. So it's got to be continual and nonstop.
Yeah, nonstop prospecting. I used this on a coaching call this morning with someone. A gentleman I was speaking to was saying, you know, I think I'm taking too much time in between calls. And I gave him the story of, you know, I do this to agents all the time. I walk by an agent's office or a team leader, you know, quite honestly, this is what a team leader setup should look like. And they're, you know, one person, a top producing agent or a team leader is standing up, headset on, they're prospecting, they're in the routine. Then I go to the next office over and it's someone who also wants to do a good job prospecting, say for sale by owners or expireds or whatever, but their head is buried in the computer. Your head being buried in the computer is, and I'll always knock on the door and say, excuse me, what's going on? Well, no, I'm researching this property before I reach out to the owner. Well, what happens if they don't answer, Matt? Oh, I guess I never thought of that. Well, why are you researching before you reach out to them? I never understood that. All right. So yes, nonstop prospecting. It is, we are in go mode. If you need to prep for that, that means no prep work. The prep work happens 7:30, 7:45, right before your huddle, right?
Yeah.
Management, MBWA, management by walking around. Can you tell us your experience with that, Matt?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be really intentional in I like to call it shaking hands and kissing babies, right? That's where we walk by each agent's office. We say, hey, how are you doing? How can I support you? Have the relational conversations, give them a little pep in their energy, and being really intentional around that. Again, your schedule is so brilliant in that it allows us to be cued in at very specific times and intentional around how we're using that time. And as leaders, if we're unintentional and we're just kind of arbitrarily walking around and shaking hands and kissing babies, the problem is that we can never get back into the core activities. So we want to have that time actually slated in which we're going to go do that.
Yep. And by the way, this is your first time that you're seeing the agents that are in the office in the morning. You'll notice in this schedule, there's two opportunities for it. There's the morning and then there's the afternoon, because sometimes there are two different groups of agents. And by the way, this will be the first time, if an agent's been in the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I probably don't know it because I've been in my zone until that time. So at exactly 11:30, I'm getting up out of my chair. I'm opening the door. It's now open door time. I'm doing one lap around the office. I'm doing a single lap around the office, checking in with people. When I'm done with that, I go back to my desk and it's open door. And anybody that wants to come see me during that time can come see me during that time, because they were not allowed to see me up until that point. And I think it's very important that you carry that same discipline into your schedule for those of you that are on.
Yeah, Jeff,
go ahead.
I was going to say, what's really critical here is that, remember, as leaders, we lead by example. People use us as a model. And so I think a lot of times leaders get stuck in a pattern of inconsistency. And so they start walking out in the mornings or just arbitrarily not following their lead generation time. And the problem is, if we as the leader aren't holding to a consistent schedule, what are we modeling to our people?
There you
right?
go.
When they think they can access us at 10 o'clock,
yep.
What are we modeling to them about what they should be doing with their time?
You're certainly not setting an example. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, why I like getting into the office early in the morning. You're setting an example. You'll notice your best agents, your top producers, they're in there before everybody. They're in pretty early. Now, I know there's some exceptions to that out there. Some of you work into the night, but for the most part, you're setting an example for your best agents. So we do the half hour of management by walking around, which, by the way, is that's actually there's actually studies on that. You can Google management by walking around. It actually is commonly referred to as management by wandering around. But to me, wandering seems a little unintentional, so I changed it to walking around. Whatever, use whatever you want. MBWA. All right, 12 to 1:30. Then we shift gears, and now it's personal time. Now it's a 90-minute check out, meaning I'm literally checked out of the business. I'm checked out of the office. I'm going to a nearby gym that happens to have healthy food as well. A lot of your towns have Lifetime Fitnesses or LA Fitness signature clubs where they have, healthier foods there. I'm checking out of the office and I'm physically not present. I'm mentally not present. For me, if you think about that, 7:30 to noon, I've got an intense morning. I'm like already exhausted by lunchtime. So I need to step away mentally and check out. And oh, by the way, you'll see there, I have no lunch meetings. I suggest no lunch meetings, and I didn't believe in no lunch meetings because number one, my diet sucks and I didn't want to get fat. But also number two is it was my time because I worked such a long day. I'm exhausted for the 6:30, 7 p.m. workout. We know a lot of people that I get my workout in the evening. And I always kind of look at that, the makeup of a person that does that. And I think about, well, what does your day look like? Because I don't have the energy to work out in the evening after working this schedule 5 days a week. So I get my workout in between 12 and 1:30, which means I don't have any lunch meetings, which means I can't get fat off of, poor lunch food, and I'm eating at the gym. Do you have anything to add to that one, Matt?
Yeah, again, what I love about this schedule and what you're talking about right here is this schedule requires short bursts of intensity. A lot of times we think that to be successful, we have to work 24 hours a day. That's not true. What we have to do is be really intentional at times. We also have to recognize we're humans. We don't have unlimited energy. And so we need those times to refresh ourselves. And one of the things I've always loved about this schedule is it gives you that window of time to just disconnect, unwind, relax, and rejuvenate ourselves so that we're ready for another intense section after that. And let me just throw this last piece in, Jeff. Notice this schedule, Jeff, that you've used both in leadership and running teams doesn't require you to work till midnight. Notice there's nothing after 6 o'clock on here. At the end of the day, if we can have these short bursts of intentional intensity, we're going to be successful.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like at lunchtime, it's like my halftime, right? The phone is silent. It's in the locker. Well, my phone is on silent all the time anyways, because if it's on vibrate or if you've got chimes going off, then your phone is running your schedule. This is my schedule. Nothing else runs this schedule. But the phone is put away and I've got a clear mind. So that way when I show back up at 1:30, I'm ready for the second half, right? I'm ready for round two. Now, what we're going to do right now, Matt, I'm going to shift gears on you just a little bit because I know you have a noon Eastern time workshop. So I'm going to handle the second half of the day. I'm going to get to that in a second for everyone that is on here. I know that there's a reason why we brought you on. And the reason is because we have a lot of team leaders. We have a lot of lead agents. We have a lot of brokers, owners, people that want to build large teams that reach out to us and say, Jeff, I know, in your brokerages, you got over 500 agents, and I know you've got the #1 team in Michigan and all this and all that. Will you coach me? Can you help me? And the reality is that there's just not enough time in the day for me to spend one-on-one with every single person that reaches out to us. So I thought to myself long and hard a long time ago, who would be the next best person who's seen just as much, if not more, than even I have seen. And that was Matt Sutter, and that's why you're with us today, Matt. But I believe we put a program together specifically for lead agents, team leaders, those that want to get to the next level. So I know you've got a hard stop at noon. So what's going to happen is Matt's going to talk to us about that for the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to continue with the rest of the schedule because these usually go about 45 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah, Jeff. So we've got a fantastic leadership and business mastery class that you and I have put together. It really is a cumulative association of all of the data that you and I have really, gosh, can you believe this? Almost 40 years of cumulative experience in the business between the two of us, which is hard to believe. But one of the things you and I both recognized is there's 3 distinct muscles that are required if you're going to have the unlimited success. And the problem is in our industry, we really only focus on the first one, which is sales skills. Now, sales skills are eminently important. And quite frankly, I'm just going to be very honest. If you haven't mastered or aren't on the way to mastering sales skills, you don't even need to listen to the next few things I'm going to say, because that is the foundation of success, both as an agent and as a leader of an office. The other 2 skills, though, we discount significantly in our industry, and we don't spend a lot of time studying them or finding resources for, and those are leadership skills and business skills. And the challenge is that we fall into the trap of believing sales skills can get us anywhere we want, and that's just simply not true. In fact, if you were to look at a big team, right, a lot of times we look at big teams and we say, oh gosh, a big team, that must mean that the Rainmaker is a great leader. And the truth is, it has nothing to do with that. Recruiting a big team is simply a sales skill. It's attracting people, explaining a value proposition and then getting them to join. But then they have this churn and burn. They're in the door and then out the door 3 months later. And the same thing happens in a lot of real estate offices. So we have to learn what are the leadership skills required to not just bring people in, but to be able to then give value, help them grow, right? Because as leaders, if we're not helping people grow, guess what? They're going to leave us and we're ineffective. It actually is a measurement of our ineffectiveness. And then that last muscle that's so critical is the business skills, understanding the financial metrics and the financial strategies necessary to be able to turn a business and actually make profit from it, right, Jeff? Because, gosh, this is such a core passion of both of ours. You know, we have worked with a lot of people that when you pull back the curtain, you see they're running these massive businesses and they're not making any money.
No.
And what's the point? What's the point of that? So we put together this business and leadership mastery course. It's 24 weeks of extremely intense studying around the leadership and business habits that make people successful.
Awesome. Well, and obviously I know, Matt, you know, one of the reasons why we chose to get into business together is because I knew that you were already coaching some great teams around the country. So you already had a lot of this stuff put together, and you hit the nail on the head with one thing you said there. And that is a lot of successful real estate agents grow these teams because they're told that that's the natural process of evolution. They're told that that's the next thing that they should do. And they just do it because they get flattered, by the way, because people are attracted to them. People are attracted to their talents. People are attracted to their signs. People are attracted to their leads. And next thing you know, they're a business owner or they're a leader of a real estate business with absolutely zero business sense. It's all been sales sense up to that point. So you're spot on with why this topic is so important. You can't just go from successful salesperson to successful lead agent or to successful leader. You have to have a foundation laid of what we call business mastery. And so when is the next course starting for that, Matt?
Oh, it's going to start the week of May 12th. I think it's Tuesday, May 13th will be the first session. It's 24 weeks. Like I said, it's intense, Jeff. This course is designed for the people that really want to take that next step. And as you just said, we cannot get into the presumption that our sales skills are predictive of our leadership skills or business skills. They're completely distinct muscle groups. And so if we're not intentional, just like how do we become a great salesperson, right? It's time on task over time. It's the same thing with leadership and business. We've got to be intentional in our study of it, and that's what this class is designed to do. Excuse me.
Got it. And I know a lot of people are tuning in today because they want to learn how to become better recruiters, which is part of the reLead series.
Yeah.
Do you spend a decent amount of time on recruiting?
Well, big time, right? It's like I said at the beginning of the call, recruiting for any business in any industry is the lifeblood. I don't care what industry you're in. If you can't effectively recruit, demonstrate value, and then get your people into production, you're never going to succeed at the highest level.
Yep, absolutely. All right. And how do we find out about this program? Where do we go?
Well, I assume we can just go to gloveru.com, right? And
Yep.
and get all the information there. I know Kate Simon's in the chat. She can send you information. You can definitely email her. I do know, you know, it was a crazy thing. This will be the second session we did. We had such incredible demand after the first session that it sold out, in like 2 hours.
Sold out the day we announced it sold out.
Yeah. We didn't get it. We had this great comprehensive marketing plan that we were going to unroll. We never got to do it. So, you know, we think it'll be the same thing here. You know, Jeff, we've always said it's not a sales pitch when we say it's going to sell out quickly. People always say, well, of course you're going to say, you know, it's a typical sales because you're going to say it's going to sell out. Well, no, here's the thing. We actually have a hard cap on the number of people we take because it's designed to be an interactive experience. We can't just have 500 people on the call. Yeah. I know you don't think we can deliver the value in the experience if it's not collaborative and interactive. So we have to set a hard cap.
Yep. And it's not like 500 or $1,000 a month either, right? I mean, it's pretty affordable, right?
It is. It's a great affordable option. You know, Jeff, I'm like you. I'm at the point I can't coach any more individuals. I'm passionate about the one-on-one coaching. I'm coaching about $2 billion worth of cumulative volume from sales teams. But this is such a great affordable opportunity to get. I really call it, it's an MBA level class. So like Masters in Business Administration level class in business and leadership. And this is the catalyst to growth.
I know it's good because we've had so many people, and this is a kudos, even though, you know, it might sound negative. We've had so many people in your last class say, holy crap, that was the most uncomfortable thing I ever went through, right? That was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever gone through because this isn't something that anyone's ever called me out before, right? Everyone's talking about growth, growth, growth. Nobody's talking about profit. Nobody's talking about models. Nobody's talking about predictive profits, and I know you are. So I know your time is short. You got to get going again. You can go to gloveru.com to learn about that. We're going to jump back into the schedule here, and you got to get on to your next webinar. All right, Matt? So thank you for being on.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you around. Okay. So stick around with me because we are going back to this schedule, which we had so many questions and requests for. All right. So workout lunch. I'm back in the office 1:30 to 2 o'clock. I'm preparing for a class. I'm preparing for a meeting. I'm also doing a little bit more management by walking around. So now I might be that when I say preparing for a class, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm teaching a class every single day, Monday through Friday. I could also have, you see there at 2 o'clock, I'm either leading a class or I've got a productive meeting. Productive meeting could be a meeting with a vendor, it could be with a partner, it could be with somebody else in the industry that I'm looking to get advice from. So when I get back into the office, I'm immediately going into preparation mode. Now, by the way, I know some of you will say, well, Jeff, where is like admin on here? Where is this? Now, I'm assuming that if you're in a leadership role, you have some level of assistance, meaning whether it's an executive assistant, whether it's a front desk person, whether it's an administrative personnel. I'm assuming that if you follow this schedule, you have at least one person that you can delegate stuff to, right? Hence the reason why we have a huddle with leadership staff, okay? And by the way, an executive assistant or an assistant is considered leadership staff in my opinion. So 2 to 2:45, I'm doing a productive meeting, I'm leading a class. I never do 1 hour classes. 1 hour ends up being an hour, 15 minutes. It ends up putting me late to something else. So for those of you that have known me for a while, quite honestly, I might even do 2 or 3 meetings in that 45-minute period. I might have a 2 to 2:15. I might have a 2:15 to 2:30, and I might have a 2:30 to 2:45. No matter what, I'm getting as much done as I can when it comes to either meetings or trainings during that 2 to 2:45 period. All right. Now, the productive meeting might also be a one-on-one session or a coaching session with one of my agents or multiple agents. It can be one-on-ones. It can be group. That is kind of my time to do things productive in terms of helping my agents produce or something productive to move the company forward. 2:45 to 3 o'clock, I know right around the corner, my first recruit is going to be showing up at any moment at 3 p.m. So I'm preparing for those meetings. I'm doing a little bit of background research. What are you doing to prepare, Jeff? I'm looking at their production in the last 12 months. I'm looking at their production in the last 24 months. I'm utilizing tools like Broker Metrics to see if their business is up or if their business is down. I'm looking at their website to see if they have administrative assistants, to see if they have buyer's agents, to see if they have listing agents. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about their business model prior to them getting there. I'm looking at their marketing to try to understand their marketing, again, prior to them showing up. All right, so I'm doing as much research as I can on the agent before they get there. 3 p.m. to 4:30, for those of you that joined us last week, I scheduled 2 recruiting appointments. Ready? I schedule one for 3 o'clock and I schedule one for 3:30. Why do I do that? Well, number one, I don't like recruiting meetings to go longer than 30 to 45 minutes, so I can get 2 done in that time if they both show up. And if only one shows up, then that's okay too. I haven't wasted a full 2 or 3 hours. See, a lot of leaders in the industry think that if they're going to set 2 recruiting appointments aside, well, I need an hour for the first one, I need a half-hour break in between, and I need an hour for the second one. That's 2.5 hours. No way. Why would you block off that much time when there's usually a 50% no-show rate, reschedule rate anyway? So I've got a 3 o'clock and I got a 3:30. Well, Jeff, what happens if your 3:30 actually shows up? Well, they're going to be waiting in the lobby for a few minutes. But by playing the numbers game, if I know I've got a 50% no-show, in most cases, I'm only going to have one that shows up for that. And if I don't have any meetings, if I don't have any recruiting appointments or if both agents no-show me, well, then I go right into lead follow-up mode. Then I go in the mode of following up with people that I spoke to earlier in the day, or the mode of checking my text messages or getting back to agents that maybe responded to an ad I have out there, or an email blast I did, or a message I left them that morning. I'm going to do something productive with my time, because here's what I don't want you to do. Okay, this is very important. Hear me loud and clear on this. If you have a recruiting appointment at 3 o'clock and they don't show up, okay, that doesn't mean you instantly go to Facebook. That doesn't mean that you go to management by walking around. That doesn't mean that you go check in with your staff early. That doesn't mean that you go handle a personal, go drop off your dry cleaning. No, from 3 to 4:30, I am in recruiting mode. I am in the mode of recruiting. So I'm going to do something productive. My door is shut. All right, at that point, I'm prepared for the appointment. I'm going to do something that has to do with recruiting. I'm already in that mindset. I'm not going to use that as a time to start working on another project. I've got time in my schedule for that, all right? So that goes from 3 to 4:30, because again, now, by the way, I might have a 3 o'clock and my 3:30 might show up. Well, I figure about 45 minutes for each one of these meetings. So if they both show up, you bet. The one is meeting in the lobby for 15 minutes. Now, if you're not doing these in your office, because I did a lot of them in my office, and I also did quite a few at Starbucks. Same thing. Now, in Starbucks, what I'd recommend you do if you're doing coffees in the afternoon, all right, you definitely want to make sure that you're in a part of the store where it's private. You're able to have a private conversation. I know every single coffee shop is set up a little bit differently, so find your favorite. And, oh, by the way, it's okay if they come in and see you talking with someone else. That shows that you're credible. That shows that you're in demand, all right? So that's what I do from 3 to 4:30. I'm in full recruit mode, just like from 9 to 11:30, full recruit mode. This is all about recruiting and growth, all right? Next, from 4:30 to 5:30, once I'm finally done with all my recruiting activities for the day, this is where I go back to meeting with the staff, going back to delegations, things that were delegated earlier in the day. I'm checking on the progress with them. Things that I need to work on. Open door means that I can work on some projects or some things that I need to look at, or things that were delegated to me, right? Sometimes I assign something and they say, okay, I did A, B, and C, Jeff. I just need you to do D, E, and F. Whatever that is, that's what I'm doing between 4:30 and 5:30. I'm meeting with my staff to see how those delegations went, the things I delegated to them. I'm delegating again. I might have more stuff that needs to be delegated, or I might have stuff that's delegated to me. And of course, the door is open during this time for the group of agents that are later workers in the office. By the way, if you're wondering, Jeff, this is really recruiting intense. You know, where do you spend time with your agents? Well, management by walking around, open door for a half hour in the morning. I've got a class or a meeting with an agent or a group class that I'm doing in the afternoon. And at the end of the day, the door's open again, right? And when I'm preparing for the class, I've got the door open as well. Management by walking around before I sit down and prep for that class. So I'm seeing my agents 2 to 3 times throughout the day. It's brief and it's short and it's to the point, but that's because I need to set an example. I need to be productive so they know what it looks like to be productive as well. And then finally, at the end of the day, 5:30, 6 p.m., I'm looking at, all right, today is Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. What do I need to handle tomorrow? What are the projects for tomorrow? What didn't I get to earlier in the day, or what didn't I get to from last night? Remember, I did those acknowledgments first thing in the morning. I got to follow up with 2 or 3 agents. Now, I consider that administrative. I can follow up with agents, projects that I've worked on for them or follow-up calls that I have with them. I'm focusing on helping my people at that point. I'm finishing the day, making sure I never forget to get back to somebody. Everyone's hearing from me by the end of the day, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then finally, I'm setting my schedule for the next day. So we dug deep into, so we're in an 18-week free series, all right? This hashtag reLead, hashtag GloverU. We appreciate you sharing it, and we appreciate you getting the word out. We're right in the middle. We're in like the intermission, right? It's halftime. This is session 9, and we broke the recruiting into 3 parts, all right? Part 1 was the what, which we covered last week. Now, if you missed last week, all you have to do is go to Google and type in Jeff Glover recruiting. Click on videos, it should come up. There's an MMA fighter out there that also has the name Jeff Glover, so you'll see some of his videos too, I'm sure. But if you just go to Google, you type in Jeff Glover recruiting, you're gonna pull up last week's session, all right? Now, for those of you that have been joining us pretty regularly, remember, and I say this every time, all right? We do not put these out to the public every single week. So don't think that, well, I can miss next week since Jeff is live today. That doesn't mean we're going to be live next week, all right? As you notice, we do things to shake things up, to keep things interesting literally every single week. So you can find us next week. We're digging into, okay, Jeff, on your schedule here, it says nonstop prospecting. On your schedule here, it says recruiting appointments. What does nonstop prospecting look like? What scripts did you use? How did you overcome objections? How did you set 2 appointments a day? And then for the 1 appointment that showed up each day, how did you present? What questions did you ask them? How did you convince them to join your company? Remember, 2 years in a row, I had the fastest growing office in a 16 office chain. They promoted me to director of training and recruiting. I know a thing or two about recruiting, and I'm excited to continue sharing with you what I know next week, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us each and every week, and we're going to dig deeper into recruiting and continue with the reLead series. Until then, I hope everyone has an awesome rest of the day and a great rest of the week. See you guys.